Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I bring to you me eating crow, just right here, right? I made a video into which I crafted the idea, or I shouldn't say the idea, an idea, of taking Tyranids and becoming a melee army's worst nightmare. That involved the Winged Hive Tyrant and the Swarm Lord. And if you haven't seen that already, go check it out. Apparently, people seem to like it. I liked making it too. But yeah. So going from that, naturally, you have to think, well, what about ranged armies? How can I be utterly insufferable for ranged armies? And I used that to a hyperbolic effect, right? This is still a game for fun. You shouldn't be aiming to make your opponent miserable. But you should still want to have your own fun every now and again, right? So if your homie is only a Tau player or something, and you do this just to piss them off, maybe don't. But for everybody else that wants to take this idea for a spin, I will say it's about to get radical. And if I know future me, I've put something on the thumbnail that you might have already disliked the video by now. But something that I know you all do like is the Lictor. I've been pretty vocal about how I don't love the Lictor. Or I guess more so, I don't like how people have become so dependent on the Lictor. Okay? However, it is a T6 4-up save 6 wound body that has fights first, infiltrators, lone up, and stealth. It has feeder tendrils to give you a 1 CP every time this model destroys an enemy character model, and the thing everybody loves is Pheromone Trail. Once per battle round, you can target one model with this ability with the rapid ingress stratagem for 0 CP. Everybody uses it as an action monkey for 60 points. That's not the worst an action monkey could be. It has Lictor Claws and Talons for precision, melee, 6 attacks hidden onto strength 7, AP 2, damage 2. It is a fine profile. Now, this is step one of to how to become a ranged army's worst nightmare. If ranged armies need to shoot, how about you make it so that they can't shoot you? So, naturally, loan up. I should also mention, I guess that glue smells bad, um, infected my subconscious by asking, essentially, just to wrap it up quickly. It's not like it was a long question, but anywho, they asked, is there ever too much Lictor? And, of course, my natural response, being the hater I am, is yes. In fact, I think there's often too much Lictor. And then here I am finding myself later, developing a separate list compared to the one idea that I gave, into which there might not be too much Lictor. Maybe too much Lictor is just enough. Now, going towards the other thing in which I was talking about becoming a melee army's worst nightmare, I focused on two of the tyrants, the Winged Hive Tyrant and the Swarm Lord. So that leaves just one other tyrant that of course you're always bringing a tyrant into the list. We're talking about the Hive Tyrant, the Walkrent. Now why would I want the Walkrent when I am trying to pew pew? Well, first off, as we should understand where I'm going with this, Onslaught, or Psychic. While a friendly Tyranid unit is within 6 inches of this model, ranged weapons equipped by models in that unit have the Assault ability and Lethal Hits abilities. That means you can advance and shoot, and your shooting pews a little bit harder. Well, I guess technically easier, because I guess harder would be more AP. But yeah, the Hive Tyrant. So naturally, if you are going to be a ranged army's worst nightmare, um, there's the option of making it so that you hit them faster than they can shoot you, right? You get up there and do that. What about the option in which you just do the thing that they do better than them while not being hit. So, if we're taking the Hive Tyrant for the buff, the other thing about the Hive Tyrant that I've discussed into why we even got to the combination of Winged Hive Tyrant and Swarm Lord, and again, I should, before we go any further with this, disclaimer, this is not a list in which I have the utmost confidence it will be the GT RTT Slammer Jammer that you might want meta list to be. This is a you can do this, results may vary. So that's where we're going with this. But going back to the Hive Tyrant, we're now pewing a little bit harder. And the thing about the Hive Tyrant is you get to, compared to the Swarm Lord, you get to hang back. Swarm Lord wants to be up front thanks to the new Malign Presence, Lord of Deceit aura, where you want to get out there and put your 12-inch aura out. Hive Tyrant, you want to stay safe so you can deep doing Will of the Hive Mind, and giving lethal hits and an aura to the things that want it. Now the other step to keeping the Hive Tyrant safe is the Tyrant Guard. They are T8, 3 up safe, 4 wounds a pop, up to 6 models, right? And while a character model is leading this unit, that character also has a feel no pain of 5 up. And we're already talking about T10, 2 up save, 4 up invo, and 10 wounds. It's not the easiest thing to pick up on the world, but I think we can all attest to our Hive Tyrant randomly disappearing at times. So, this is a blade of wounds, if anything. And to that extent, for this initial idea, I wasn't adding 6 models, just 3, so we can capitalize on putting infantry keyword to the unit on the Hive Tyrant. Now, Monster, why would that matter? Well, I think you probably understand where this is going by now. We're going in Vanguard Onslaught. Tyranid units with this ability are eligible to charge in a turn in which they fell back. Vanguard invaders can advance and charge. And Vanguard Prime, you can make Deathleaper your Warlord. Yeah, we're also going to be bringing Deathleaper, right? Now, you would go, now Monster, you just told me this is about advancing and charging. And you also just told me that the Winged Hive Tyrant, the one with Vanguard Invader, as a keyword, is not the one you're bringing in this Vanguard Onslaught idea. Absolutely correct. Because while I can advance and charge with certain units, for most of them in this idea, I'm not going to. Because also this goes to another pain point of what I try to highlight about Vanguard Onslaught. Just because you can doesn't always mean that you should. And that's not to say that the um, the people behind these rules didn't think that far. I'm not like, oh, I just know better than them or any of that. No, no, no. It's just that there is a new wave of applications to some of these units that might work in other ways than people expected. Because the first line lets you know that all Tyranid units, when you play this detachment, can fall back and charge. So at the very least, all of your units in this detachment gain something. They can all fall back and charge. And you might wonder why that's important. We'll get there eventually, but just remember, you can fall back and charge. For the enhancements, if we're taking the walk rent, you can only really, well, I mean, you can still take another Vanguard Invader character if you would like, but for the purposes of right now, Hunting Grounds and Neuronote are where you're looking. I'm still on the fence on if you really want them. It depends on what the meta is doing. But also, why would I want to make the Hive Tyrant infantry? Well, I can use Hypersensory Cilia to make it so that I have a reactive move, or I can pick up and drop somewhere else on the board with them being infantry. And then, of course, the other things you can already figure out where we're going with this. Now, why am I worried about shooting once more and the detachment where I can fall back in charge? But more importantly to most, my Vanguard invaders, let's just look at the list real quick, can advance in charge. Well, let's look at what other people are taking in Vanguard Onslaught and what we've realized. I will be cherry picking here to prove my point. But just right here, we have people bringing Exocrine, 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 and this is Zoanthropes, Exocrine, Maleceptor. So, this is also going to be a little bit petty. I should, like, full petty warning. I have expressed displeasure with Brewlord genestealers in recent videos. Not to all effects, but I have talked about how they don't do enough damage. They don't do the damage you want for the points cost at this moment, in my opinion, for most things. And to which the argument is like, well, they can punch up because of death wounds and da 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 da. Kind of. But as long as Vanguard Onslaught has been a talking point for this edition, like the Codex drop, it's always been you can do tricksy things. You can get Brewlord Genestealers into combat, but they don't hit hard enough, and then they fall over. Unfortunately, that is still the case, so you want to bring something that can actually punch shit like Exocrines or the Think Tank, i.e. Neurotyrant Zoanthropes. So, not to be the I told you so person, but going into this, I hope this illustrates my point further as to Brewlord Genestealer Bomb is perfectly fine, but we still need to be thinking about realistic shit to do damage instead of just relying on the Stealer Bomb because they just don't do that much damage. Unfortunately, they have a lot of applications, don't get me wrong, but as we see Vanguard Onslaught picking up, it does better when you still have something that can take care of shit T9 and below. So we're bringing shooting and buffing that shooting, right? So there's that part. Then we go on to the Neurolictor, where we're talking more buffs. And to the credit of Glue Smells Bad's original question, it was like, what about 3 Neurolictors? And we did that at the start of the edition and realized we were we were shenaniganizing. Like it was bad. We should not have done that. Um However, with this, there's a chance to do something really funny. It is an infiltrator with lone up, stealth, T5, 4 up save, 4 up invuln, 7 wounds. Okay? People will tell you that go against the Neurolictor, it is surprisingly tanky. And Tyranid players would tell you it's really not. At the same time, people expect to just go fight a Neurolictor and immediately kill it, and then you roll 4 ups with 7 wounds, and then they go, well, shit, that didn't work. Now, the Neurolictor also has feeder tendrils, just like the regular Lictor, but it also has Neural Disruption, the one that we love. In your command phase, select one enemy unit within a foot of this model. That unit must take a battle shock test. Perfect. And then, even further, it has Psychological Saboteur and Aura, While an enemy unit is within a foot of this model, if that unit is battle shocked, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, subtract 1 from the hit roll. Each time a friendly Tyranid model makes an attack that targets that unit, add 1 to the wound roll. So, one thing that uh, was pretty cheesy that recently got changed in the FAQ that dropped in the last update is that for surprise assault, we were there's no range limit on surprise assault. So previously, this part where it says your shooting phase or the fight phase just after a Vanguard Invader unit from your army has selected its targets, yeah, you didn't have to select targets at first. You could just, during your shooting phase or the fight phase, select an enemy unit and they have to take a battle shock test. Okay? Going onward, that Vanguard unit is the target. Select one enemy unit that was selected as the target of one or more of your unit's attacks. That enemy unit must take a battle shock test. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, add 1 to the hit roll. If the battle shock test was failed, add 1 to the wound roll as well. So, naturally, this caused problems, again, with other former warding in which you targeted both the Vanguard Invader unit and your opponent's unit. That way, TOs at first were like, well, since you're targeting both and it's a battle tactic, you can't make it free in the old Will of the Hive Mind situation. However, now they've made it a lot more easy so that they were like, you just gotta target your own shit, and then whatever they're attacking has to take the battle shock test. All fine and dandy. However, this made a lot of restrictions. So now you have to dedicate shooting or fighting to make that test happen. And it should be noted that at worst, you will be getting +1 to hit versus that target, and at best, +1 to wound. Now, of course, you want more battle shock tests for the Neurolictors aura to go off, +1 to wound for, that one Vanguard Invader you're using. But also, if your one Vanguard Invader didn't kill them in one fell swoop, they're now battle shocked, ideally within Neurolictor aura to still have the -1 to wound versus them. And then, hopefully, you do enough wounds that they have to take a battle shock test on their turn and possibly become -1 to hit. So, all of that, we ran into the issue of, well, shit, we don't have Vanguard Invaders that really like to shoot. With the Synapse buff, my Winged Hive Tyrant that I was giving Chameleonic and a heavy Venom Cannon just to pluck wounds and kind of do a pew-pew sniper thing, that's out the window because now I rather take the melee option, +1 strength hit with strength 10 for AP2 damage 3. And then what are the other things you can shoot with and Vanguard Invader? Not many. I just talked about the Tyrannocyte a little bit. Sure, you could do that if you really want. The Winged Tyranid Prime can go on to ranged Tyranid Warriors, making them Vanguard Invader, so you can trigger that test. And honestly, I did consider that when thinking about this video, or before I even got to making this video, like last week or something like that. I thought about it. It's not worth it. I think we all knew that. It was just stupid enough in my head, but hey. Um, Harpy, Hive, Crone, Lictor, no. Mawloc, no. Neurolictor doesn't have, again, still no. Raveners, they have a ranged attack. Yeah, that I guess you could uppy down and trigger that test in spots where you want it. Trigon has range, but Von Ryan's Leapers still no, because don't have it. Oh, and also I did skip over Gargoyles. That, again, could be attached to the Winged Tyranid Prime, but 18-inch weapon. But don't worry, Gargoyles will be into this idea sooner or later. So we go over to the Harpy. Why the fuck do you have a Harpy on the thumbnail? Why the hell are you telling me to bring a Harpy? And if there's something good with a Harpy, you fucking traitor, why are you exposing it? GW is never going to bring the price down now. Yeah, I'm at the point where I give up on thinking that they're going to reduce the price on any aircraft this edition, let alone the Harpy, which you've probably already disliked the video at this point. Not gonna fucking lie. Because I'm probably putting the Harpy on the thumbnail. But if you're still here and willing to hear my argument, the Harpy is the Vanguard invader that isn't completely terrible compared to the option of, well, the winged Tyranid Prime and Tyranid Warriors. That has the longest distance weapon, or weapons. The twin heavy venom cannon or the twin stranglethorn cannon is 36 inches, right? And for this one, the one that we're probably going with in this idea is Stranglethorn Cannon, 36 inches, d6 plus 1 attack, hidden on 2, strength 7, AP 1, damage 2. Because quite frankly, they don't have an okay volume of shots. Like this is they've I don't like their lore reason between twin linked or whatever. It's like, yeah, I'm looking at the model. It has 2 guns. What do you mean I have the same amount of attacks as 1 gun, but be twin linked means it's on the same targeting system? That doesn't make sense. But hey, and then if you are within 24, you can bust out a couple more shots with the Stinger salvos. 24 inches, 8 attacks, hitting on 3, strength 5, AP 0, damage 1. Now, the Harpy, those are the options. But I guess I should, just for argument's sake, bring them up so that you can see the other quote-unquote option. Because you will go, well, if I have more shots, maybe that's better. The Tyranid warriors with ranged bioweapons have the option to bring the Venom Cannon and the Barb Strangler for that distance. 36 inches. D6 plus 1, D3, hidden on 4s, that's the problem. 611, 922. Now, if you do a bunch with 6 of them, you have access to 2 Barb Stranglers and 2 Venom Cannons, not heavy Venom Cannons. Into which, yeah, you get 2d6 plus 2 and 2d3. And they are blast, so maybe there's that, but they are T5, 4 up save, 3 wounds, and for that package we're looking at 195 points. Where for 215, so for 20 points more, I can have T9, 3 up save, 12 wounds. So, the other part with the Harpy. Well, let's just close this out because I don't think we're going to be revisiting that. Is that it's twin linked, right? Twin linked allows you to reroll wounds. And if we're doing shooting better, if I can find a way to reroll my hits, and I have a way to reroll my wounds, that's more damage that I would like. So, since we're bringing Exocrines into Vanguard Onslaught now, we're bringing Exocrines into Vanguard Onslaught now. We already know what it does, but just for a review, T10, 3 up save, 14 wounds, Bioplasmic Cannon, Blast Heavy, 36 inches, D6 plus 3, hitting on 3s, Strength 9, AP 3, Damage 3, Symbiotic Targeting. In your shooting phase after this model has shot, select one enemy unit hit by one or more of those attacks. Until the end of the phase, each time a friendly Tyranid model makes an attack that targets that unit, reroll a hit roll of 1. So, yes, you're still bringing the Exocrine to reroll 1s for your Harpy to then reroll those wounds after. And again, we're probably going with this, right? So D6 plus 1 and D6 plus 3, that's quite a volume of shots that you can probably get off. Why? Well, the Harpy is a flying monster. And because it has hover, you don't need to worry about the limitations of aircraft. I mean, you can start it on the board if you want. You can even, fly over your own shit and get into angles that you got your Exocrine into without worry. And the other thing about the Harpy, just if it wasn't clear, it is a Vanguard Invader, right? Going back to Vanguard Onslaught, that means that it can trigger Surprise Assault. So, maybe, just maybe, you do it in reverse order. where you're feeling a little bit froggy. They are around your Neurolictor aura, and you just got a feeling that they'll fail this battle shock test. You can surprise assault first after targeting with the Harpy. They fail it, +1 to wound for your Harpy. That is cool, taking that, hitting, and then re-rolling wounds twin linked. And then because they're in Neurolictor aura, Exocrine gets to have +1 to wound versus that too, if you want to do it in the backwards order. Now, assuming the Neurolictor already made them fail the battle shock within the aura, then, proceed as normally, expose the Exocrine. If it wasn't enough, you got extra coverage with the Harpy. The other thing, going back to our first, but Monster, you're not telling me how to keep the fucking Harpy alive. Well, not only if there's battle shock, there's -1 to hit, there's also the fact that it is indeed a Vanguard Invader, meaning I can use Unseen Lurkers. One Vanguard Invader unit from your army that was selected as the target of one or more of the attacking units attacks your opponent's shooting phase. Sorry about that, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. Until the end of the phase, your unit can only be selected as the target of a ranged attack if the attacking model is within 18 inches or if your unit has the Lone Op ability. If the attacking model is within 6 inches. Sorry, I took a pause there because I don't like how they wrote that sentence. Your opponent can select new targets for the attacking unit's attacks. So, suffice to say, if you are 36 inches away, you are over twice 18 inches away. Okay? The other thing with the Harpy is that it can do the funny little thing of Spore Mindset. Each time this model makes a normal move, you can select one of the following. Select one enemy unit it moved over during that move, and roll 6d6. For each 3-up, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. Fine. It's not the worst damage. Some damage is better than no damage. Or add one new Spore Mines unit containing D3 models to your army and set it up anywhere on the battlefield that is wholly within 6 inches of this model and more than 9 inches horizontally away from all enemy units. You cannot select this option for more than one model per turn. Spore Mine says. Now, here we go, okay? If you put a Spore Mine in front of you, let's pull up just so everybody's aware of what a Spore Mine does. I think we all know, but it has Bio Minefield. Don't worry about this. Never worry about that. Deep Strike. Don't worry about that too, because we're not taking it for 55 points. Enemy units cannot start or end an advance move within 6 inches of this unit. Each time this unit or an enemy unit ends a move, for each model in this unit that is within 3 inches of one or more enemy units, select one of those enemy units. That model in this unit is destroyed. Then roll 1d6. On a 2 through 5, the enemy suffers 1 mortal wound. On a 6, they suffer d3 mortal wounds. Okay? Alright. This will also give you protection versus things like advance and charge. So, not to say that this could be applied to melee armies as well, but it's better than nothing if you want to take this idea. And this will stop them from getting, well, if it's an assault army, say Bringers of Flame or Mont Cartel, they can't start or end an advance within 6. So if you get some Spore Mines out, they can't advance to get within 18 of you while you are shooting your guns from 36 inches away. Or you're doing it for the 24 of the other gun. Also, a funny little thing is that each time this model ends a normal move, if you, Hypersensory Cilia, you can make a normal move up to 6 inches for 2 Vanguard Invader units once somebody gets within 9 inches of your unit. So, say they do finally breach that bubble and they're closing in, alright? They get within 9, you spend, 2 CP or 1 CP, because we're using the the Hive Tyrant out here, not the Winged Hive Tyrant, for this idea. You spend 1 CP, fall back 6 inches with your flying monster, right? Flying monster that, by the way, 20-inch move when you go to hover. So, okay, you do that. And you drop a spore mine along their path. You cannot target units that are within engagement range of one or more enemy units. Cool. And if it all goes to shit, Invisible Hunter. Up to 2 Vanguard Invader units from your army or 1 Tyranids infantry unit from your army. Remove the targeted units from the battlefield and place them into strategic reserves. The targeted units must be more than 3 inches away from all enemy units. Now, that is to say that maybe they finally got within 18. If they didn't pick up your Harpy, which, let's be real, it's fairly possible, but at the same time, enough decent rolls, and you'll be surprised at how long 9, 3, 12 just stays on the board. Maybe not too long, like we're talking maybe an extra turn, but that's from people overestimating sometimes their damage. If it all goes to shit, you have to pick your Harpies up, put them back somewhere. We're just going to close that because I keep accidentally clicking on that. Put them somewhere and do it all again later. For you to surprise and assault and do all the things. Now, Monster, is that where all of this foolishness ends? You haven't sold me on the Harpy, because why the fuck am I bringing Harpies? And why would I bring Exocrines? I get it, all the things. It is a very mad idea. And again, this isn't to say that it's that great of an idea, truth be told, but it is quite an interesting idea when shooting armies can't shoot you. Let's also talk about the Mawloc. I've been talking about bringing more big Vanguard invaders and Vanguard Onslaught for some time now, especially the Mawloc, which now has a way to continuously use the Deep Strike ability. And why does that matter? Well, with Terror from the Deep, each time this model is set up on the battlefield using the Deep Strike ability, roll 1d6 for each enemy unit within 12 inches of this model. On a 2 through 4, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. On a 5 up, that unit suffers 3 mortal wounds and must take a battle shock test. T10, 3 up save, 14 wounds. Distensible Jaw, anti-infantry 4 up, dev wounds, extra attacks, 1 attack, hitting on 3s, strength 5, AP 0, damage 3. Don't worry, dev wound, anti-infantry 4 up. Mawloc Scything Talons, 16 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 8, AP 2, damage 1. If they can't get to you, because they're fighting through spore mines, and they're being held up by fights first infiltrating lone op lictors, while they're in fields of maybe -1 to hit battle shock testing Neurolictors, you can do the funny thing of deep striking up and down again and again with Invisible Hunter, because once more we're talking about a Vanguard Invader monster, and do mortal wounds that way. And maybe when it's finally time for melee, that they tried to get to you from, or get to the Harpies, from everything. You finally give them melee with 16 attacks, strength 8, AP 2, damage 1. From your Mawlocs. That, because they're Vanguard Invader, all the rules still apply. You can still loan up them if you left them out to dry. And with more chances at battle shock tests, as people were bringing in Synaptic Nexus, you have the option to trigger the Neurolictor, where'd I put you, more often. And we can just close out the Spore Mines, because we know what those do. And we've talked about the Exocrine, probably won't need to come back to that as well. So, there's your Mawloc as well. And we go on to the fact that, well, I have these Spore Mines, right? Bioforce. Monster, they made it pretty clear that only one thing with this ability can use it, right? Siege Spore Mines. Once per turn in your shooting phase, when selected to shoot one unit with this ability, can use it instead of making any attacks with its ranged weapons. If it does, you can add one new Spore Mines unit to your army and set it up anywhere on the battlefield that is wholly within 48 inches of this unit and more than 9 inches horizontally away from all enemy units. That Spore Mines unit contains one model for each model in this unit. Want to see something cool? Right? I'm just going to put you all side by side as the Spore Mines. Siege Spore Mines? Yep. That's a different ability than Spore Mine Sis. Now, there you go. That's just more Spore Mines if you're being annoying. And I should also mention, if you are doing the Spore Mine route of this is optional. Okay? The Spore Mine shit is optional. The Mortal Wounds, optional from the Spore Mine part, right? Do not do this in a turn in which or do not do this in a game in which the primary is kill more, hold more, and try to do it sparingly until you see your opponent's card that is like, hey, we need to kill shit in places. So there's that. So keep that in mind with if you're using the Spore Mines to that effect. But as you can see, you're putting out a lot of mortal wounds, whether it be through Spore Mines, or Mawloc bombing, right? Well, still shooting. Well, with the Exocrine that I did close out the window. Egg on my face. And then let's talk about the other one, the Hive Crone. That technically does have a 36-inch uh, weapon. However, the Hive Crone is a lot more risky for this. Airborne Predator, each time this model makes a ranged attack that targets a unit that can fly, add 1 to the hit roll. Fine and dandy, sure. 200 points though. Dual Cannon Torrent. Not ignores cover. T9, 3 up save, 12 wounds. 20-inch movement, same kit as the Harpy. 12-inch range though. 2d6, 611. Typically isn't too bad, right? Now it's not twin linked. Don't know why. It doesn't ignore cover. Don't know why. So you kind of have to live with that. Stinger salvos, just like the Harpy, 24 inches, 8 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 5, damage 1. Sure, this is definitely for infantry clearing, right? And then Tentaclids, anti-vehicle 4 up, dev wounds, 36 inches, 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 2, strength 7, excuse me, I was looking ahead. AP 0, damage 2. Now, if you are so inclined, you can try to make the Hive Crone work to give you further ways to deal with vehicles. It's 200 points. And well, it is 10 more points than, where'd I put you? The Tyranofex. That you probably should still bring. Which is better for your anti-tank purposes with the Rupture Cannon, heavy, 48 inches. 2 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 18, AP 4, D6 plus 6. You're probably still bringing the Tyranofex, because it's and hey, better than nothing, you get fall back in charge. Which, safe to say. Now, if you want to spice up your life and make it so that the Tentaclids are just finishing off the Tyranofex's targets, that's all fine and dandy. Also to be said, sorry about the background, I guess you could probably hear that. Scything Wings and Thorax Spur. Hey, if you really want to do some melee because you're feeling that it's just not happening enough for you in this detachment, you have Scything Wings, 4 attacks, hitting on 4s, strength 7, AP 1, damage 2. Goes well to follow up after the Harpy, right? With that same profile if those are the attacks you're going for. And the Thorax Spur, anti-fly, 2 up, extra attacks, 1 attack, hitting on 3s, strength 10, AP 3, D6 damage. Now, going to the funny haha, yeah, I can fall back and charge. The other thing you can do with fall back and charge is that you can fall back out of combat, let something with blast shoot that target, and then charge back into it. You know? If the situation calls for it. There you go. There's your extra 1-2 punch on that damage. It doesn't take any CP for you to fall back and for you to charge after that. None of that required. Go ahead and hit blast weapons into what your friendly unit was previously in. There you go. Now, you see that I have Gargoyles, because this is the point in the video in which I do need to remind and ground some reality. I don't need to, but it should be noted that you still have to play the game. You still have to score points, play the game. And when I was looking at my list, I ended up dropping the Tyrant Guard for another squad of Gargoyles, 85 to 85. Gargoyles are deep striking battle line that have fly, and they are Vanguard invaders. They have a ranged attack that has assault, 18 inches, 1 attack, hidden on 4s, strength 5, AP 0, damage 1, blinding venom, 1 attack, hidden on 4s, strength 3, AP 0, damage 1. You're not in it for the damage. The nice little additional wounds might be nice, but you're not doing it for that. Wing Swarm, in your shooting phase after this unit has shot, if it is not within engagement range of any enemy units, it can make a normal move of up to 6 inches. If it does, until the end of the turn, this unit is not eligible to charge. It is infantry, it can move through things. We do this thing called shoot and scoot, as I know you've heard of. Alright? Put them in gargoyle jail, or use your gargoyles to do other things. Because they have OC, and their battle line. And the other thing about that is that in a game such as 40k, well, in the game 40k, I should say, um, it's not necessarily having a set number of objective control onto a point. It's having more than your opponent while you have some on there. So while you have things like a Biovore holding your home objective with 1 OC, as long as no opponent's models are on your home objective, you have that home objective, right? Same thing with the Gargoyles. If they are tied up with things like the Lictor, Neurolictor, right? Or maybe your infiltrators are helping you hold objectives too. You can just throw Gargoyles where you need them to be, and they can be picked up as well and put in other spots. And the thing I've talked about in the Vanguard Onslaught video is being mean. With Seated Broods, your movement phase, 1 Tyranid unit from your army that is in reserves, or up to 2 Vanguard Invader units from your army that are in reserves, until the end of the phase for the purposes of setting up those selected units on the battlefield. Treat the current battle round number as being 1 higher than it actually is. Turn 1, Gargoyle Chill. Whatever you want to do with that, do with that. Turn 1, Gargoyle Jail. Put them in it. Make them have to fight their way out. Maybe save a unit or two to score some points with secondaries. Maybe throw them on objectives, whatever it may be. There you go. Because the Harpy does not have OC. Does not have it. The Mawloc does. That you're also probably bringing in this list. But Harpy does not. And, well, if we're keeping our Hive Tyrant safe, it probably isn't on an objective. But it does also still have OC. But your Lictors, Tyrant Guard, if you're bringing it, Neurolictor, Mawloc, or Tyranofex, Gargoyles, Exocrine. They have OC. So going back to the whole shebang, right? Why, oh why, would this be a thorn in any ranged army side? Well, if they can't get to shit, because there's Spore mines in the way, you're blocking them and punching them with fights first once they finally get bold enough to come try to play games. You're constantly low up with all of your models. Oh, that's the other one we should address. All of this, how could I possibly leave you out? Deathleaper. T6, 3 up save, 4 up invuln, 7 wounds, fight first, infiltrate, load up, stealth, Lictor claws and talons, precision, melee, 6 attacks, hidden on 2, strength 7, AP 2, damage 2. Feeder tendrils, same thing, fear of the unseen while an enemy unit is within 6 inches of this model, worsen the leadership characteristic of models in that unit by 1. In addition, in the battle shock step of your opponent's command phase, if such an enemy unit is below its starting strength, it must take a battle shock test. It cannot be your warlord unless, for flavor, we're in Vanguard Onslaught, right? You have this time something with an invul, like the Neurolictor, something with fights first, like the Lictor. Now, no synapse, but you are putting out an aura to make those battle shock tests, whichever version of those may be, even harder, while possibly battle shocking your opponent with your own ability and their command phase. So that means you're possibly triggering once again -1 to hit with the Deathleaper. And you can loan up an additional 6 inches, or yeah, to 6 inches if you really want to get tussle with it, so you can make sure that your Deathleaper is around. Not the most important piece to this pie, but a thing you can do. So yeah, it's a strategy, and I want to chime in with something else, into which I am aware the models like the Harpy, Hive, Crone are not favorable right now. I just want to add though that there's several units that might not be favorable and may never be favorable for this entire edition. But when you build an entire game plan around them, they can become favorable. Something like this, something like Tyrant Guard, where we're seeing 18 blocks of Tyrant Guard. That's 170 points per 6, so that you're tanky and just being an asshole. We've seen Norn spam, kinda work, kinda not. It's just like any other skew list in the idea where you're just overloading one idea. We've seen Tervagon with all the Termagants, Unending Swarm, a bunch of Hormigons. We've seen that a few times. We've seen Gargoyle Jail in Invasion Fleet. Now we can put the Gargoyles in Vanguard Onslaught as their home. So, all of this, suffice to say, I guess we should also bring up another loan up that if you want to score more points in Battle Shock Test, Parasite of Mortrex, Deep Strike, Loan Up, Stealth, Fight Phase, at the start of your fight phase, select one enemy unit within engagement range of this model. That enemy unit must take a Battle Shock Test. Again, if you want to double down, score some other points. Deep Strike, Loan Up, Stealth. Parasitic Infection means that if you kill something, kill an infantry model with the Barb Ovipositor that has 1 attack hitting on 2, Strength 3, AP 2, Damage 3, but Anti-Infantry 3 up, extra attacks, you can generate some Rippers. And they will take away OC that way from your opponent as well. So there's shenaniganizing afoot. And if you want to double down on ideas, just like you would any other skew, you can double down on this idea, and again, results will heavily vary. This is not to say it is an idea that you probably will benefit from in a competitive scene sense. I want to make that clear because every now and again there's just like, but this would never work at my GT or my RTT local game shop, yada yada yada. This is purely with the idea in mind of how to make ourselves pretty much unhittable when versing a lot of ranged armies. Or a ranged army. I shouldn't say a lot of. Maybe the meta calls for several ranged armies. Maybe this is the skew for a team's list. It's just like, alright, Vanguard Onslaught, so you're going to try to hit me with a bunch of genestealers and Tyranid Primes, right? And Winged Tyranid Prime and Melee Warriors, right? No. No, I'm not doing that. Because again, one of the other grievances I've had about Vanguard Onslaught is that it doesn't necessarily make you better at melee. It helps you get there in melee with those units, but it doesn't necessarily make you better at it. Like, you aren't getting +1 to hit in melee like you get in Synaptic Nexus. Um, you aren't getting sustained in melee or lethals like you could possibly get in Invasion Fleet. You're not getting a parasitic biomorphology and regenning the melee units as they get up the board like Assimilation Swarm and possible lethal hits in melee as well. Like, you're not getting that in Vanguard Onslaught, you're just getting the mobility. And the mobility is nice on things that can be mobile, but yeah, like we're even giving precision to quite a bunch of the units that already have precision in their kit. Oh, and one that doesn't necessarily follow this line, but I do also like for the screen I do, is Von Ryan's Leapers. They can be hit, but they do have fights first, infiltrator stealth, and an invo save. So T5, 4 up, 6 wounds, 6 up save, 3 wounds. That's another screen that somebody might have to get through if you're going against ranged armies and fights firsting infantry with 3 to 6 models, 6 attacks per model, hitting on 3s, 5-1-1. If they're a ranged army, they're probably getting popped by this. Maybe not popped, but they're struggling with it if it's a ranged army, more often than not. So yeah, I've been yapping enough, but to answer the question, is there ever too much Lictor? Maybe not this time. So yeah, if you like the video, like it. Got a comment from you, comment. And until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.